A very good evening to one and all. I welcome you all to this newspaper analysis initiative. These are the articles that are important from the UPSC perspective. Without any further delay, let's begin with the first one. The first article for the day is Need to transform public perception of police, says PM. See, India's policing structure continues to struggle with issues of trust, colonial era laws, inadequate capacity, and rising complexities of crime. So, our Prime Minister at the DGP IGP conference stressed that transforming public perception of the police, especially among the youth, is now as critical as operational reforms themselves. So, what are the concerns related to that? The first one is public trust deficit. Citizens, especially young people, often see the police as distant or intimidating. So, there is a need for improving professionalism, sensitivity, and responsiveness must be central to reforms. The second one, outdated legal and institutional structure. Policing still functions under the Colonial Police Act 1861. The need is for a modern service oriented framework linked to the new criminal laws BNS, BSA, BNSS with public awareness campaigns. The third one is capacity and resource gaps. Shortages in manpower, forensic capacity, investigation skills, and cybercrime capabilities widen the gap between expectations and delivery. So, what should be our focus? The first one is technology led policing because modern threats require modern tools. So, we need better use of NatGrid, integrated databases, and AI driven intelligence. This reflects the shift towards predictive and preventive policing. The second one is specialized areas that are needing reforms. The first one in that is urban policing for crowd management, mobility, and smart city risks. Coastal and island security through innovative models. Tourist policing to improve safety and India's global image and reputation. The third one is community centric policing, that is, community liaison groups, beat constables, and grievance portals can humanize police public interaction and improve the trust deficit. The last one is the holistic reforms, which are training in soft skills, gender sensitization, stress management, and disaster response readiness. These are all essential features of a modern police force. The next article for the day is more than 300 Indians evacuated from Sri Lanka arrive at Kerala capital. We have already discussed about Operation Sahar Bandhu. Today there was another detail, we will look into it. Okay. India launched Operation Sahar Bandhu to help Sri Lanka after massive floods and landslides. Garud commandos were also used. Okay, so now what does this Garud commandos mean? They are the allied special forces of the Indian Air Force and they were formed in 2004. They are trained for tough tasks like protecting air bases, carrying out counter terror operations, rescuing hostages, and supporting humanitarian and disaster response missions like the one in Sri Lanka. And this Sahar Bandhu operation is also one of India's neighborhood first policy and the Mahasahar initiative. The next article for the day is the Sangai Festival. The Sangai Festival is Manipur's biggest cultural festival, started in 2010 and is named after the state animal, the Sangai deer. It showcases the entire cultural identity of Manipur through music, dance, tribal art forms, crafts, food, and especially the famous Ras Leela dance. This year's theme is Festival of Oneness, and this highlights conservation because the Sangai deer is found only in Cable Lamjau National Park, the world's only floating national park on Loktak Lake. What is the Sangai deer about? It is a subspecies of El's deer which is endemic to Manipur and its only habitat Cable Lamjau National Park. The IUCN status is critically endangered and it is in the Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. The next article for the day is Institutionalizing Animal Representation. This article can be used as an example in applied ethics, especially animal ethics. This article basically argues that animals are structurally invisible in democratic systems because institutions are designed only for humans. Animals don't vote or they don't lobby. So their interests get overridden by economic and political pressures. What this article says is we must move from charity to political representation. That is, by creating something known as fiduciary institutions. Those are guardians whose mandate is to protect animal interests in policy making. Just like we have bodies for children's rights, data protection, environment, we need independent institutions for animals. The logic is very simple. That is, animals are vulnerable, so humans are the trustees, and the institutions must speak for beings who cannot speak for themselves. Major demand in this article is deepening democracy, which means including the interest of non human beings who depend entirely on human decisions. The next article for the day is 2030 for 2036. What this article says. India is hosting the 2030 Commonwealth Games in Ahmedabad. It is not just a sporting event. It is actually a part of a bigger strategy. Okay? That is, India wants to position itself as a global sports destination. Especially, we are also planning to host the 2036 Olympic and we are bidding for that. Okay, and Ahmedabad is the lead candidate. So this Commonwealth Games becomes a showcase of world class infrastructure, our organizational ability, and also the political intent. And you should be knowing about the sports that are being conducted by this Commonwealth Games. These type of questions can come in your UPSC prelims. Okay. Now, what are the benefits of having this Commonwealth Games conducted in India? The first one, it is a soft power platform because hosting mega events improves India's global image. It aligns with India's growing sporting ambition, which is beyond cricket. And big events push infrastructure development, which benefits both the sports as well as the city in the long term. However, there are certain challenges associated with it. This Commonwealth Games now has limited sporting value because countries are not willing to host these games anymore. The second one is India's medal conversion from Commonwealth Games to Olympics is very low. And there is a rising doping problem which can also damage India's credibility. And the financial cost associated with these gaming is huge and the overruns are also very common. So this Ahmedabad 2030 is both an opportunity and a test. The next article for the day is AIDS and TB fight. Tamil Nadu shows the way again. So what's this article about? Tamil Nadu created a simple but path-breaking solution. It converted its AIDS cell into an autonomous body called TN-SACS, Tamil Nadu State AIDS Control Society. This meant quicker fund flow, flexibility, and fast campaigns. As a result, the state flattened new infections yearly, and this model later became the national template itself. That is why India's HIV prevalence fell from 0.54 percentage in 2000 to 0.22 percentage today. Now, the same story is repeating for TB. India has the world's largest TB burden with 25% of all TB cases globally. And TB is also the major opportunistic infection among HIV patients. Now, how Tamil Nadu is again showing the way. It is the first state to integrate a predictive TB mortality model developed by ICMR into its TB management system. This helps identify which TB patients are at high risk and intervene at an early stage. And all the screening, diagnosis, treatment, and nutrition support, all these are integrated and are digitally monitored and tracked. And this fast adoption of technology and efficient delivery system is what is Tamil Nadu showing us the way. The next article for the day is India needs research pipelines. Earlier in an analysis session, we were looking into publish or perish, which talks about how research papers are fabricated or is bought. Okay, and this one says that we need research pipelines. And what is it about? India's big problem in research is not lack of talent, it's the absence of a steady, predictable research pipeline. And today, most of private R&D spending is episodic or it is purely CSR driven. And India's gross expenditure on research and development is only 0.65 percentage of GDP, and which is far below the global level. And a large share depends on public funds. So, what are the current challenges in India's R&D ecosystem? The first one is the low private sector participation. The second one is weak and inconsistent industry academia linkages. The third one is the fragmented funding, lack of long term commitments, and limited translational research capacity. Because innovation on often remains at prototype level without pathways to commercialization. Okay. And what are the various global benchmarks? If you see, US companies invest around 5% of their net sales in R&D, and China's Huawei invest around 20% of its revenue for R&D. Private sectors like Tata Motors, Sun Farmers, they have increased the R&D intensity by 6 to 8%, and there is a strong innovation platforms like IIT Madras Research Park, then IDEX for defense startups, and India's semiconductor mission, all hopes for this R&D ecosystem. And we also have a growing startups which are integrated with the labs. Now there is a need for a proper research pipeline, which means we need to set clear R&D investment targets for major sectors. The second one, we have to make companies co-fund university projects like creating joint labs, shared facilities, or like shared IP frameworks to incentivize both publication and commercialization. And we also should update the tax incentives to reward actual research output and train PhD students to work directly with industry. Also, if companies report their annual R&D spending transparently, boards will start treating research as a strategic priority and not just as a CSR funding. The next article for the day is Judgments must not be tossed out after their authors retire. This is one of the most important article. We will look into the details. Justice Rahanatna has raised an important concern about judicial independence. She said Supreme Court judgments should not be overturned just because the judge who wrote them has retired. Recently, some verdicts have been reopened or reversed soon after the judge left office, like Vanashakti judgment, which had stopped the practice of ex post facto environmental clearances. We also discussed about this in previous analysis. And what happens is this threatens the stability of precedent and allows forum shopping. What is forum shopping? It means when a litigant deliberately tries to get their case heard by a particular judge or bench they think will give a favorable ruling. You have to take 2 points from this article under which are very important and you can use it in your mains answer. The first one is judgments must be challenged only through proper legal processes, not undone informally through bench reconstitution. Okay. The second one, judicial independence also rests on the personal conduct and political insularity of judges. Political insularity is a keyword and forum shopping is also a keyword. Okay. From this article, Modi urges people to take part in Kashi Tamil Sangamam. For UPSC, what matters from this Man Ki Baat episode is mainly the cultural initiative, food security milestone, and technology defense updates. Our Prime Minister highlighted the upcoming Kashi Tamil Sangamam, calling Tamil the pride of India. Okay, this directly fits into Ek Bharat Shrestha Bharat, cultural unity, linguistic heritage, and nation building. You can quote this in General Studies 1 Culture and General Studies 2 in National Integration. The next biggest agricultural milestone is India's food grain production has touched 357 million tons, which is up by 100 million tons in 10 years. This is a solid data point for General Studies 3 answers on food security and agri growth. On technology and defense, the induction of INS Mahi was mentioned, which shows our maritime capability and coastal cultural symbolism. The other one is the private space sector push and the recent Skyroot's Infinity Lab and Vikram 1 rocket. We have discussed in detail about these things. The next article for the day is New finds highlight Great Nicobar project sites biodiversity. Great Nicobar is again showing why it's one of India's biodiversity hotspots. Since 2021, nearly 40 new species have been reported right from the proposed project site. And the two latest finds are a new snake species, Lycodon irvini, and which only records like only 4 so far. And scientists say that it should already be tagged as endangered due to its very tiny range. And a new bird species is the Great Nicobar crake, which has been photographed only 3 times in over a decade. Okay, this island has 650 plant species, 1800 plus fauna with 24% endemism in many groups. So every new discovery basically underlines how ecologically sensitive the area is. The next article is from yesterday's paper, which I told I will take it up today. That is, how much plastic is too much for marine birds, mammals, and turtles. A new global study show how serious this plastic pollution has become for marine life. And they have told that 1,300 plus marine species, including every family of seabirds, marine mammals, are ingesting plastics, rubber, and fishing debris. And this ingestion causes blockages, intestinal twisting, punctures, and eventually death. The data shows around seabirds 35% swallowed plastics, and marine mammals 12%, and sea turtles 47%. And sea turtles are the worst hit. Around 50% of the examined samples had plastics in them. And they say that 6 to 405 pieces of macroplastics are enough to give a 90% chance of death for these species. Now, what does macroplastics mean? Macroplastics are large plastic debris pieces that are bigger than 5 millimeters, and they include items like plastic bags, bottles, packaging materials, fishing nets, rubber pieces, and other visible plastic waste. And this study actually strengthens the argument for coming up with national and global plastic reduction policies, extended producer responsibility, regulation of single use items, better fishing gear management, and the most important is the stronger global frameworks under the UN Plastic Treaty negotiations. Now we will look into what is this UN Plastic Treaty. The UN Plastic Treaty is a proposed legally binding international agreement to end plastic pollution, covering the entire life cycle of plastic from production to disposal. Okay, and the negotiations began in 2022 under the UNEP. And the treaty is to take a comprehensive full life cycle approach addressing plastic from design and production to disposal and waste management. And the final negotiation recently happened in Geneva, Switzerland. The next article from yesterday is this adenine base editing reps up against two blood disorders. Okay, first we will look into the disease that are specified here, which is the thalassemia, which is a genetic blood disorder where the body cannot produce enough healthy hemoglobin. Because of this, red blood cells become weak and break down faster, leading to chronic anemia. And there are two major types. The first one is alpha thalassemia, the problem in the alpha globin gene. And the next one is the beta thalassemia, problem in the beta globin gene, which is HBB, which is what the article refers to. Okay, in beta thalassemia, mutations in the HBB gene reduce or stop the production of the beta globin chain. Without this, hemoglobin cannot form properly. So the person gets symptoms like severe anemia, fatigue, bone deformities, and in severe cases, the need for lifelong blood transfusions, and it is inherited. A child gets it when both parents are carriers. The new research mentioned using adenine base editing. It is a precise gene editing technique, and UPSC loves these words, and it has asked about this CRISPR gene editing like 2 to 3 times. So just remember the name, which it is known as adenine base editing, a precise gene editing technique. It is to correct the faulty HBB gene in a patient's stem cells. When corrected, the cell starts producing the more normal beta globin, which means healthier red blood cells and fewer complications. The next article for the day is depletion of ferrous scrap sources hugely challenging for India. India's steel demand is rising fast, but the big problem is this. Global ferrous scrap sources are drying up. Countries like UAE and the EU are putting export restrictions to promote their own circular economy. So, India, which is already scrap deficient, now faces a major supply gap. By 2030, India will need about 65 million tons of scrap every year, but we may still fall short by 20 to 30 million tons. To fix this, we are trying things like vehicle scrapping policy 2020, which should ideally generate huge end of life vehicle scrap. But the uptake is still low in this policy. The second one is we are setting up recycling plants to formalize the scrap ecosystem. Example, companies like Tata Steel has started this. The third one is we are pushing for electric arc furnace, which is cleaner when compared to blast furnaces. And it is also told that future scrap sources will come from white goods, especially ACs, refrigerator, appliances, and even retiring thermal power plants. Now, why this matters? Because India's steel use will jump from 152 million tons today to 220 million tons by 2030, almost 390 million tons by 2050, and it is mainly due to the infrastructure projects. And without a strong domestic recycling ecosystem, India's import bill and carbon footprint will shoot up. Okay, now there was a keyword circular economy. What does that mean? A circular economy is a system where we keep products and material in use for as long as possible by reusing, recycling, and repairing instead of using them once and throwing them away. The goal is to reduce waste, save resources, and make production more sustainable. And the circular economy question was already asked in UPSC prelims. The next article for the day is Indonesia and Thailand race to find missing persons as flood toll tops 600. You can use these as examples in your answers. Indonesia, Thailand, and Sri Lanka have all seen unprecedented rainfall and severe flooding in the last few weeks. These real time events clearly show how climate change is amplifying extreme weather and making disasters more frequent and intense. The next article for the day is Pakistan rejects UN warning over its 27th amendment. Now, what is this 27th Amendment in Pakistan. It is a constitutional change that formalizes military supremacy, centralizing power under the army chief and limiting civilian and judicial oversight. And how is it going to impact India's security? It increases the risks of proxy terrorism, nuclear escalation, and conventional military confrontations, which will require India to strengthen strategic deterrence and intelligence capabilities. The next article for the day is Baikonur, Gateway to the Heavens. Okay, Baikonur is Russia's main spaceport, but it is actually located in Kazakhstan. The Soviet Union built it in the 1950s as a missile testing site, and it later became the heart of the Soviet space program. After the breakup of the USSR, Kazakhstan kept the ownership and leased it to Russia until 2050. And even today, major rockets like Soyuz and Proton launch from Baikonur, including cargo missions to the International Space Station. The last article for the day is this photo shot, and in that there were two specific keywords, which are nebula and white dwarf. Now, what is this white dwarf about? A white dwarf is the final stage of a small star's life. After a star like our sun burns all its fuel, it collapses into a very small, very dense, hot ball. It doesn't make a new energy anymore, it just slowly cools for billions of years. Okay. A nebula is a huge cloud of gas and dust in space. It is where stars are born and also where old stars end up after exploding. Nebula looks colorful in photos because of the glowing gases. And this is the Butterfly Nebula, which was recently captured by the Chile's Gemini South telescope. That's all for today. Thank you all for joining.